Hello, and welcome to Field Lab Earth, the podcast that's all about past and present advances in the fields of agronomic, crop, soil, and environmental sciences. Today we'll be talking to Dr. Angélica Vázquez-Ortega and Russell Brigham about Lake-Dredged Sediments in Ohio. Dredging is a helpful way to keep waterways clear for commerce and recreation. However, it's not always clear what to do with sediments after we've dredged them. In this episode, Angélica and Russell will discuss their work using dredged sediments as nutrient amendments, including how sediments are processed, the effectiveness of these sediments, and why these solutions are so crucial moving forward. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but before we dive in, we wanted to thank our sponsors, starting with Meter Group. Meter specializes in robust soil moisture sensing, innovative weather monitoring, cloud data logging, advanced data visualization software, and more. Their well-published scientific instrumentation is used worldwide in universities, research and testing labs, government agencies, agriculture, and industrial applications. Listen to their new podcast, We Measure the World, to hear how innovative researchers leverage environmental data to make our world a better and more sustainable place at metergroup.com/fieldlabearth. Our second sponsor is Gasmet Technologies, the maker of the GT5000 Terra, the smallest portable FTIR multi-gas analyzer for greenhouse gas and environmental research. Measure carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, methane, nitrous oxide, nitric oxide, nitrogen dioxide, ammonia, and water vapor in real time simultaneously from static or automated chambers. Visit www.gasmet.com, that's Gasmet spelled G-A-S-M-E-T, or email sales@gasmet.com for more information. I'm your host, Abby Morrison. Let's talk about science. Hi everyone, welcome to the show today. Today we have Angélica and Russell with us. Angélica has her bachelor's in environmental sciences from the University of Puerto Rico, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and her master's and PhD in soil, water, and environmental sciences at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. She currently works as an assistant professor of geochemistry at Bowling Green State University. Russell has his bachelor's in geophysics from the University of Nevada in Reno and his master's in geology from Bowling Green State University. He now works with the U.S. Department of the Interior at the Bureau of Indian Education. Welcome to the show. How are you both doing today?
Very good. Thank you for inviting us for this event.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Great. We are so happy to have you both on. Today we are going to be talking about using dredged soils as kind of input factors for agriculture. So just to get us started, can you tell me some background information about this project, kind of where you were getting dredged soils from, why they were dredging in the first place, and just kind of the background of how this project started and what you were hoping to achieve?
Shipping is an important part of the economy for Ohio. Shipping brings in millions of dollars to the economy and thousands of jobs for a lot of these port cities. And shipping for Lake Erie requires dredging to be conducted to keep the shipping channels open. A lot of the channels become filled with sediment mostly lost from farmland in the Maumee River watershed. We focused our study in the Toledo Harbor because that is the largest port city in Lake Erie and for Ohio. Previous techniques required the dredged sediment to be dumped back into Lake Erie in an open area where they would resuspend the sediment. And when you resuspend the sediment, you release nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus back into the water column, as well as create an area that buries the bottom layer of the lake, causing a lot of resuspension of sediment in the lake itself. So what we did was focused our attention on the sediment from the dredging of the channels. In 2020, the Ohio legislature stopped the process of open dumping into Lake Erie. And there was alternatives that needed to be done or studied for the dredged material. So for us, we studied the potential beneficial use of using the dredged sediment in farmland. So we gathered the dredged sediment from the Great Lakes Dredged Material Center for Innovation. We also gathered farm soil from a local farm near Toledo. We then took the material and the farm soil to a local greenhouse and spread out the material in a large covered area to dry it out. So we took the dredged sediment and the farm soil and mixed them together in different ratios. So we took 100% farm soil and put it in buckets. We took 100% dredged sediment and put them in buckets. Then we did a ratio of 90% farm soil with 10% dredged sediment, mix those together and put those in buckets, and a ratio of 80% farm soil and 20% dredged sediment. Mix those together. We took the different ratios and placed those in a greenhouse where we planted soybean to determine whether the soybean can even grow in dredged sediment, and compare it to 100% farm soil to see how well the soybean would grow in those different ratios.
Okay, so I have a question about the dredged soil. So is that just like you just go to a center to pick that up, or like how are you working with whoever is dredging the soil to actually get your hands on it?
So currently, the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, in conjunction with the Army Corps of Engineers, they are in charge to dredge every year the federal navigational channels in Lake Erie. And they have designated a specific island. They call it a Facility 3, and it's pretty much like a man-made island. If you have an aerial photograph from the Western Lake Erie, you can actually see this square island. And Joe Capel from the Toledo Port Authority, he took me to the area, and it's like an island. It was really an adventure. It was really nice to go there and visit the island. So the Corps of Engineers, they are disposing all the dredge, and this dredge is pretty much like 80-90% water. So they put it in the island, and the idea is for the dredge sediment to be dewatered over many years. So the amount that they put, like for example, from October to January, they did the dredging, and they put it in the island. And when I visited the island, it was extremely wet. So it will take a lot of time for the water to be removed from the sediments, and then eventually it will be used, or it will be available for beneficial uses. And there can be many different beneficial uses. Among them is the one that our coworker here, Russell, he was explaining, using it as a farm amendment. But it can also be used for different benefits, such as reconstructing a wetland or for filling back a site. One possibility is if there is a brownfield. Brownfields are areas that are contaminated, but not to the degree to be characterized or categorized under the Superfund site, that it's extremely contaminated. So the brownfields, they can be potentially capped with the dredged sediment and then can be restored. Actually, there is an example in which there is a park in Toledo that right now it is completely covered with fly ash. So fly ash, it's very cemented, very hard for the vegetation to grow. And we are working with the city of Toledo to put the dredge back to put a couple of layers of dredge, and then test if grass or even trees can grow in the area. So at the moment, the dredge is going to be sitting in the island, waiting to be dewatered. And meanwhile, before it can be used, widely to the public, scientists such as myself, we are going to be continuing investigating if it's actually feasible to use the dredge for beneficial uses. And more in farming. In farming, it's a cost balance. So we need to do a cost-benefit analysis, because we need to investigate if the value that the dredge is giving us, in instant, the nutritional value, if you think about it that way, how much nitrogen, how much phosphorus, how much calcium, how much organic matter, if that enough to balance the cost for transporting the dredge into the farm, and then the farmer can make the yields, the crop yield can be sufficient to cover the cost for the transportation. And the idea is that if we employ the use of dredged sediments as farm amendments, we maybe are going to be allowing the farmer to save for the addition of synthetic fertilizers. So that's what we are trying to do. But currently the dredge, it's not going to be available for a widespread use, because it's being dewatered. And again, scientists, we need to determine the feasibility, at least with regards to farming.
So when you get the dredged material, is it like really fine as an amendment? I just think like of silt is usually what I think of as like being in water. Or is it more coarse than that? What does it actually look like to put this on?
When you're looking at this material, the farmland is typically in Ohio more clay-like, and the dredged sediment that we received was actually sandier, is slightly sandier, so that helped with with everything. So yes, it was more sandy than anything else.
Yeah, as Rosa is saying, the main soil series in Ohio, it's named Hoytville, and it's very clayey. The dredge, it's more sandy, as Rosa was saying, but also has a lot of organic matter in comparison to the typical clay soil in the area. So by adding the dredge into the farmland or the farm soil, we're actually improving. That's the idea that we are looking behind, to improve the soil health. And when we talk about soil health, we need to think about it in different compartments: the soil health chemistry, the physics, and the biology. So if we are adding organic matter, we are improving all of these different aspects. For example, high organic matter content can increase or can improve the structure of the soil. So it enhances more porosity, and it's better for the root system to penetrate a soil that is more rich in organic matter and that the structure is well established. For the chemistry aspect, organic matter, it's being the source of food for bacteria and fungi and macroinvertebrates. So it's very important that addition of organic matter into soils. And then for the chemistry, organic matter, it's very rich in nutrients: calcium, phosphorus, nitrogen, potassium, sodium, and all of those are nutrients that are going to be beneficial for both the microorganisms and the plants that are going to be living in this soil. So by adding the dredged sediments, we are improving the soil health in all of these different aspects.
Great. That's that's awesome. What a cool use for something that was just kind of being dumped. So yeah, I think that's a great segue into my next question, which is about what you found after your experiment.
Well, as Angélica was saying, it did improve the organic content in the soil, and it was significant, which is very interesting to see how that the dredged sediment was able to improve the soil itself. One interesting thing was that it also improved calcium content and what we term as the cation exchange capacity. Now, that sounds big, but it essentially means that the soil was improved, that it allowed the plants to actually better uptake nutrients into its roots and into the system itself. So those were huge improvements when using the dredged sediment with the farm soil.
Great.
The farm soil that we used, we didn't know we were collecting from a legacy P or a biosolids farm. So that means that the farm soil itself had a high level of phosphorus already attached to it. When we added the dredged sediment to the farm soil, this actually started to lower the amount of phosphorus in that farm soil.
So additional results that were actually not included in our publication, the publication in which Russell is the first author, but that other students in my lab are conducting and are analyzing are related to bioaccumulation of contaminants. So the story that Russell published in his paper, it's more related to the nutritional story, how nitrogen, phosphorus, and carbon are partitioning between the soil, the water system, and as well as the plants. But another aspect of this research that I am also pursuing is to understand the bioaccumulation of contaminants. Why? It's very important to have in mind that these sediments are at the bottom of the lake. So it's not only eroding, it's not only sediments that came from the topsoil of the farm, but it might be some industrial waste that is also absorbed into the sediments. So one of the contaminants that can be found in the sediments are polychlorinated biphenyls or PCBs. Another one can be polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon, PAHs. And then the last one is heavy metals. Also, we were aware or maybe worried that there might be some microcystin. Microcystin is a toxin that is being produced by the cyanobacteria that are in the lake, and they are very toxic to the human health. For example, in August 2014, the city of Toledo, they declared a do not drink, do not boil advisory because the toxin, even if you boil it, the temperature that you can reach in the stove at your home, it will not destroy or denature the toxin. So you actually ended concentrating the toxin, and to the point that the city was so worried that they said to their citizens, do not boil it, do not drink it, do not even wash your mouth or take a bath. Everybody was drinking and doing everything with water because of being worried about having this toxin in the water. So between Russell and me and other students, what we are doing right now is I send the soybean grains to be analyzed for PCBs, PAHs, microcystin, and heavy metals, and I have data regarding to that. Good news is that there is no PCBs preferentially being accumulated. Well, actually, there is no PCBs in the dredge, there's no PCBs in the farm soil, and there's no PCBs in the soybeans. PAHs, there were PAHs in the soil and in the dredge as well, but the concentration of the PAHs were higher in the in the soil farm. And I'm thinking that maybe it can be due because, as Russell was mentioning, that biosolids were applied for many decades, but when Russell collected the farm soil, the biosolids stopped, the farmers stopped putting biosolids a decade ago. So it was like a decade of cleaning the soil, but it seems that there might be some lingering contaminants in the farm soil as well. And regarding heavy metals, there is heavy metals in the dredge, there is heavy metals in the farm soil, but in both cases, they have very similar values. So for instance, the same amount of arsenic or lead was also found, in the dredge and in the farm soil, and their concentrations were very similar. For this region in Ohio, the region that Rosetta and I conducted this research, arsenic is a high. It's in high concentration in the farm soil, so it is high in the background, and it is because of the geology of the area. So the rocks in which the soil it's formed, the parent material, that it's in which the soil is going to be evolving, it's already rich in arsenic. So therefore, everything is rich in arsenic. But when I did the bioaccumulation of arsenic and other heavy metals in the soybeans, there was no preferential bioaccumulation. What do I mean by no preferential bioaccumulation? Where there is bioaccumulation, similar, if there is a heavy metal in the soil, the plant will uptake it. But it is uptaking it to a higher degree than if you have it in just farm soil. And that was not the case. When we look at the concentration of the heavy metals in beans grow in a regular farm soil and in the dredge, their concentration was very similar. So that's why we conclude that there was no preferential accumulation, and the content of the heavy metals, it's pretty much the same if you grow that in a regular farm or in your backyard. So those are the main results that we are now working on for the next publication.
Sure. Yeah, wow, that seems really promising. Congratulations. I had a question for Russell. You said that the P actually went down. So does the sediment have the dredged materials, does that have a lot of P in it or not as much, and maybe that kind of balanced things out? How did that work specifically?
Right, there wasn't as much P in the dredged sediment. So with the farm soil being so high, it helped essentially decrease or dilute, I guess is another way to put it, lower the P. The phosphorus levels were at a value of 38 parts per million, which is fine for farm soils. So it helped in the farm soil where the phosphorus levels were really high, like at 110 parts per million. It helped to decrease down to lower levels, which helped the soil from the legacy P farm soil. It would be interesting to see how the amount of dredged sediment works with a soil that is deficient in phosphorus to see a potential increase, but we didn't do that study. Overall, the quality of water that was being studied, the runoff essentially from this project, showed that when we increased the dredged sediment, there was no increase in the nutrient loss of the percolated water. So what that means is that the dredged sediment did not increase significantly any nutrient loss from the water, which means the material can be used in farmland without increasing the nutrient loss in rivers. So that was really interesting to show that we have a potential fertilizer for farms without a potential increase of nutrient loss into the stream waterways.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the show. Interested in learning more? Angélica and Russell's article, Assessing the Effects of Lake-Dredged Sediments on Soil Health, Agricultural and Environmental Implications on Northwestern Ohio, published in the Journal of Environmental Quality, will be freely available for the next 2 weeks. Thanks again also to our sponsors, Gasmet Technologies and Mater Group. For Gasmet Technologies, conduct greenhouse gas flux measurements in the field using the GT5000 Terra. weighing 20.7 pounds, splash-proof IP54 rated, internal pump and battery, and vibration resistant, the GT5000 Terra is a robust and portable multi-gas analyzer for fieldwork. Visit www.gasmat.com or email sales@gasmat.com for more information. Meter specializes in robust soil moisture sensing, innovative weather monitoring, cloud data logging, advanced data visualization software, and more. Their well-published scientific instrumentation is used worldwide in universities, research and testing labs, government agencies, agriculture, and industrial applications. Listen to their new podcast, We Measure the World, to hear how innovative researchers leverage environmental data to make our world a better and more sustainable place at metergroup.com/fieldlabearth. Thank you for being our sponsor. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, and I think that actually transitions really well into my next question. Unless you have any other overarching kind of implications for this. It seems like you've met with good success so far. But I'd also be interested in kind of your future research. We've touched on that a little bit, but where are you both hoping to go with this next?
Future research. I'm very excited because right now I have gotten a couple of grants to continue with this research, and I'm also working very hard on putting more grants to continue expanding the application of dredged sediments as for amendment. For example, I got a grant from the Ohio Sea Grant office, and for this specific grant, in contrast to the one that Rosa and I have been explaining and talking so far, in which we planted soybean. Now for the new grant, I'm going to be planting corn. And it's going to be very similar to the one that Russell conducted. It's going to be in a greenhouse setting as well. We're going to be looking at the nutritional value as well, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus. And in addition, we're going to be looking at the contaminants that I just mentioned briefly, PCBs, PAHs, and heavy metals. So, and I'm also joining forces with other other investigators in my university to looking at the bacteria community in the soil, to looking at the effect of pathogens on the growth of the corn when it's, when now we have this amendment, the dredged amendment, because that's very important to know. If you are adding dredged sediments to a farm soil, will that change the microbial community? Will that change the chances of survival of the plants? Or it might maybe even help that against pathogens. So all of these different aspects we're going to be looking at to build on and expand on the project that Russell just conducted at BGSU. Another project that I applied and my proposal was recommended. There is no certainty yet that I'm going to get it, but it has been recommended for being funded, is through the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program. And for this specific one, instead of using or focusing on cash crops such as wheat, corn, soybean, I'm going to be focusing on specialty crops. And specialty crops are just a couple of examples: lettuce, carrots, strawberry, blueberries, all of these different fruits and veggies that we enjoy to have in our dinners or, every meal. So in this case, I'm going to be doing as well a greenhouse experiment, but now with the fruits and veggies. And I'm going to look at all the aspects that I just mentioned: nitrogen, carbon, phosphorus, and the contaminants. But in addition, I have joined forces with a professor at the Ohio State University, and he's going to help me conduct an agronomical and economical analysis, because this is, I can test the dredged sediments regarding, can I grow corn, can I grow soybean, can I even grow the specialty crops? But another very important aspect is, will this be feasible? Will a farmer be willing and able to transport the dredge and put it in their farm? And again, this is farmers, this is a business. No, farmers want to make sure that they have a healthy soil, that they are in compliance with just putting what is necessary, what are the necessary nutrients, and minimizing the export of nutrients and exacerbating what's going on in Lake Erie with the algae blooms. But they also want to spend just the necessary money so that they are not expending more money managing their land that the money that they can get back from the yields. So we are going to be doing this specific economical analysis to calculate, let's say, if I add the dredge, how much it will be to transport the dredge from A to B, how much it will be to rent an equipment to spread it, to incorporate it, and then if I put the dredged sediments in my land, do I have to add lime? Do I have to add potash? Do I have to add synthetic fertilizer? The answer that I'm looking is no, so that they can save money and counterbalance for the transport of the sediments. But again, I need to test that in an experiment. And this is what is my next grant that I'm actually right now writing, which I'm going to be submitted to the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research. This grant has a bottom, a base of $300,000 for apply up to $1 million. So we can apply within that range and propose different experiments. So the one that I'm proposing is a demonstration farm to put everything that I have learned in my greenhouse experiment now into a field. So I have identified a couple of farmers that they're going to allow me to use their farmland. Actually, they assigned to me, if I get the grant, to have 3 different fields in which I'm going to be different treatments to test the viability of using dredged sediments as for amendments. And again, I'm going to be looking at the soil health, but also I'm going to be looking at that aspect of the economic, the cost benefit analysis. And, just to finalize my future research, I am a geochemist, as it was mentioned at the beginning. So I have no knowledge in agronomy, no knowledge in economical analysis, and I need to team up. And I'm teaming up again with researchers and professors from the Ohio State University, but also with the many different agencies and offices and groups around Ohio. For example, the Lucas Saltwater and Conservation District, they are going to be serving as a liaison between me and farmers. Also, crop advisors in the area that are in that one-to-one with farmers, testing their soils and advising them regarding how much of X and Y fertilizer they should be putting in their farm soil. Also, the Ohio Corn and Wheat Growers Association, they are very excited and willing to collaborate with me. The Ohio Department of Ag and the Ohio Farm Bureau Federation. So I am doing this, and I want it to be feasible and applicable. And the only way that I can do that is by looking for advice from experts. And I'm, knocking doors, calling all these agencies, because I recognize that I need that expertise for this project to be applicable, at least in the region, in this region.
Wow, that's so amazing. It makes me very happy in my heart to hear about all of your hard work and all of the promise that these projects have to help people and help farmers. And just hearing all of the people that are pitching in to get the work done always makes me really happy. So thank you for that. I've got 3 questions left for you. The first of them is, if people want to learn more about these projects or these issues, obviously there's your paper, but where else can people go?
Yeah, so exactly. We can have access, or you guys can have access to the paper that Russell published. I also have 2 fact sheets that are summarizing, just 1 page, summarizing the main results that if you one I can share with you with no problem. Also, you can go to the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency webpage, and they have a page dedicated for dredging in Ohio. And finally, there is also another webpage that you can visit, Great Lakes Dredging Team, that they are also doing a lot of forums and workshops and seminars regarding the effort of dredging in the region.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, those sound like some great resources. We will be sure to include links to all of those in our show notes, so people can check them out if they would like to. My next question for you is, if people then want to take that next step and get involved in either this project or this kind of work, what can they do?
Okay, so first of all, if you're a student or you want to conduct research and do your master's degree in geology with a specialization in geochemistry, you can contact me. My contact information is going to be included in this podcast. Also, so if you are a farmer and you are interested, this idea is of your interest, you can also contact me and maybe we can collaborate in the future. If maybe we can do a demonstration farm in your area, putting in practice what I have been learning in my greenhouse experiments. Then the last point that I want to say is, if this is something that you're passionate about, you want to see how these dredged sediments are finding a beneficial use, not only for farming, but also for other uses, as I mentioned at the beginning, wetlands, construction, or so on, you can actually contact your congresswoman or your congressman, and you can talk to them directly. For instance, in Ohio, we have Marcy Kaptur, and she is an advocate for environmental protection. So she is the Ohio's 9th congressional district congresswoman. And if you go to her webpage, you will see that she is she's advocating for environmental issues. And if we think about dredged sediments as right now as a waste, why thinking about it that way? Why can we think about it in terms maybe more of a beneficial use? So if we can use them to improve soil health, or to reconstruct a wetland, or for construction, or so on. So these are the people that are bringing the money to our state and are advocating for the environmental resources in the area. So I will advise you to contact your congresswoman or congressman. And again, as I mentioned, if you want to do research as a student or as a farmer, you can contact me. I am always putting proposals and happy to collaborate with you. Thank you.
Yeah, those are great ways to be involved. We will have ways to contact you guys in our show notes, so that'll be great. Final question for you is, what is one fun fact that people would not know about you if all they had was your research?
I'm a Native American, and I'm from Fallon, Nevada. I'm part of the Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe. And I'm a first-generation graduate, first generation for a bachelor's too in my family. I got into geophysics because I liked geology and I liked physics, so it was kind of a good combination there. And it was great for me to continue on with my education and work with Angélica. And did something totally different. I'm not a geochemist, so I focus mostly on math and physics. So it was very interesting to do this project, and I really enjoyed my time in working on this. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of long days, but I got through it and really enjoyed my time on this project. There's so much benefit to all of the work that is and continues to be for this work for dredged sediment.
So, fun fact about me. I am also first generation on completing a PhD, a doctoral degree in my entire family, from my mother's side and from my father's side. Currently, my sister, she is doing doctoral degree in pharmacy. So she's following my steps, and I'm so happy and that I'm a role model to her. But when I went to the university to do my bachelor degree, I gravitated towards environmental sciences. And then little by little, I have been gravitating towards doing research in farming, in agriculture. And it is so exciting and unbelievable, but my father is a farmer. So I'm kind of like the new farmer generation. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that to myself, but my father is a farmer. He has been working the land very, very hard, and I have seen him and appreciate the effort and how he has been there all the time supporting his family. But it has been also very gratifying to see the contrasting between the type of farming that my father does versus the type of farming that it's being done here in the States. Like my father, we are from Puerto Rico, so it's a small island in the Caribbean, and farming, it's very different. My father still uses animals to manage the land. So, and here you have huge amount of land and a lot of machinery to manage the land, but it's like, how can a farmer manage such a huge land? And they do it, and they do it wonderfully. But, my father, it's more like a small localized region. And I remember growing up and eating what my father was growing in his farm. One thing that I love, it's plantains. I don't know if people that are listening to this podcast know what are plantains, but it's like a bigger version of a banana. And I like that. I remember my father going to the farm and cutting that, and we eating that fresh, like super fresh. It was just wonderful. I cannot have here in the U.S. I can find plantains, but not as fresh as the ones that my father will collect. But it just has been amazing to see the contrast between how my father and grandfather are farming versus here in the U.S. And it's just wonderful. Each one, it's wonderful in itself. So it has been really amazing for me to go into this area without even, it's just a natural gravitation for me. It wasn't intentional, but I'm really enjoying this, the research that I'm moving on. I'm really excited, and I'm super happy to have students as I had with Russell. He was an exceptional student, and I really enjoy working with him in this project. So I hope that everybody here have enjoyed this conversation and learn a little bit about the research that I do in my institution. So thank you for listening.
Yeah, I've certainly enjoyed this conversation a great deal. Those are some wonderful fun facts. Congratulations to both of you on all of your accomplishments, the research that you're doing, and going out of maybe your initial comfort zone to explore more agricultural things. That's super neat. I find myself in the same boat. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks. And thank you to the listeners.
Thank you for listening to Field Lab Earth. You'll find links to today's resources in our show notes or on our website. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for show topics, please contact us at podcast@sciencesocieties.org or on Twitter @FieldLabEarth. If you'd like to hear more content like this, please subscribe, and don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Stitcher, or anywhere else you find your podcasts if you like our show. This podcast is a joint production of the American Society of Agronomy, Crop Science Society of America, and Soil Science Society of America. Special thanks to Lobo Loco for the use of their song Spook Castle on the intro and outro of our show. Opinions and conclusions expressed by guests are their own and are not considered as those of the American Society of Agronomy, Crop Science Society of America, Soil Science Society of America, its staff, its members, or its advertisers.